spruce or fir or pine, you have these wide grains.
Okay.
And what that leads to is that this area here sands differently than this
Okay,
area.
got it.
Because this is harder than this area, so you get
it.
this wavy pattern. You don't get that with oak because it's so hard. So what you end up with, and which means it wears well, and it takes shaping okay. Now this one has an example here. Actually, maybe it's this one. Yeah. So here's an example of how it doesn't take it well. The router that I used to make this edge blew out this chunk right here, right? So it has a little chunk missing. And same thing here, right? So what I've tried to do is I've tried to select everywhere that there's a letter that's not scratched out. So this is for stair 8, right? Everywhere there's a letter that's not scratched out, the other side is the side that will be seen. So when I install this stair tread, I'll do this to make sure it's 8, and I'll put it in like that.
Okay. So this is
The side that we have to do the
This
work.
is the side we see.
Yeah.
And what I'll do with these is I'll go through once the lights are back on, and I'll basically draw a line like this. We don't need to do anything in here. Nothing needs to happen on the inside.
No.
But
Only on
we
the
still
outside
have
edge.
to do on the other side.
Just a
come
little bit
in,
because
yeah.
because essentially the edge of the wood is about there. That's where the edge of the riser is, right? And then that goes all the way
it
across.
will show,
And then
yeah.
same over here.
Yeah,
This
okay.
extends. This overhang and this overhang
Okay.
should be approximately the same.
Yeah, okay.
So
Overhand, yeah.
So the way, and then with stair treads, what you want to do is, with staining, what you want to do is oak also, even though it doesn't have the big grain, it has a bunch of small holes, right? So you can feel it when you scratch it. So what you need to watch out for is as they get sanded, you need to make sure that before you do the next step, they get wiped off or they get vacuumed off. So you pull all the dust out of there.
Okay.
Right? So, and then the normal sequence of sanding with stair treads is you want to sand them to 120 grit, which I have. So you have 120 grit to sand them smooth. Then you stain them. So everything's, this like edge and stuff, you sand to get rid of that. You sand so that it's the way you want it to feel under your feet, right? And then you vacuum it all off. And then you stain it. That stain you put it on, and then it gets wiped off. Now, red oak needs more time to absorb the stain.
Okay.
Some woods can absorb the stain, and 5 minutes later, they're dry to the touch. Red oak tends to reject stain.
Okay.
So you put it on, and then after this amount of time that it says on the stain container, you wipe it off, and then red oak, you come back later and wipe it off, and then you come back one more time and you wipe it off again.
Oh, okay.
Because it just keeps kind of goes in and then it pushes it out a little bit. So, yeah. Then you so at that point you have your stain applied. You've done your first sanding. You have your stain applied. That is actually the point where you want to go back through with something like a putty or filler in any spots that you feel like you need, and you want to match that to the color of your stain. So sometimes you need to take multiple different putties and mix them a little bit. It's better to go darker with the putty that you use than you think you need to.
Okay.
Darker spots, if you have this even just a little bit darker, like it's kind of a gray, like it's almost like a milk paint, right? This color. Right? It's almost like a milk paint. It's not that different, right? So milk paint is like a white translucent paint that used to be common in like farmhouses and things. And so this color being lighter, this is a darker one here, but it's not that much darker, right? And so if there was a defect in the stairs that needed to be filled, it's better to go darker with the putty than it is to go lighter. Lighter things tend to pop out more than if there's darker things, because this is actually less conspicuous than that,
Okay.
right? This doesn't draw your eye as much as that does because this is lighter. So once that stain has been applied, once things feel the way you want them to feel, they're looking the way you want them to look, That stain has been applied, that stain has been wiped off a couple times. Then you start in on coats of the top coat, which I would suggest you use water-based everything. There's not, used to be that there was a big difference between water-based products and oil-based products. Oil-based products were just more durable and they were just better overall. Now what's happened is oil-based products have gotten kind of worse and water-based products have gotten better. Oil-based stuff has gotten worse because they can't have the same solvents and the same chemicals in them that they had before. And the quality of the materials has come down a little bit. But meanwhile, water-based quality of materials has gone up a lot. So they're a lot closer together than I would think. Plus it's way less stinky. Way less stinky, which I don't know if that matters to you that much, but my wife, it matters a lot. She would not want us to use any oil-based stuff in our house. And then the key is you put on a coat, you let it dry. With a lot of water-based stuff, you can do more than one coat the same day even. It dries pretty quick these days. So then you put on a coat, then you take 180 grit. Right, so you've gone from 120 to stain, now you go up to 180 grit, so it's getting finer. And you just, the way I think about it is like this. If I just took your hand and ran it across a stained piece of wood, or a finished piece of wood, you would feel the imperfections with your hand. If I then went, and I'm not even kidding, it's like this. So let's see if we can do it here, actually. Okay, so feel this piece of wood. Right? And now, feel that same piece of wood. You feel how different it is? Literally, all it is that. And it
You
makes,
mean that don't need to
you're not
push too
sanding.
much. Yeah.
You're literally just
Why?
scraping it.
Yeah.
And what you want to do is so most of the time with stair treads, I suggest that people don't go with a high gloss finish. It tends to be slippery. This isn't high gloss, right? When you look at it in the sunlight, it's more of a matte finish or a satin. So you don't need to go with gloss. And what you're trying to do with the sanding between coats of finish, you're just trying to knock down any imperfections. And you're trying to give it just a little bit of what we call tooth, right? So teeth hold, right? That's what our teeth usually do. They cut and they hold. So by giving it a little tooth, you're just opening that finish up a little bit so that the next coat has something to really tie into. And then that one dries, you do another one. It's probably a 3-coat process.
Okay.
Now, the video I sent you, that guy does this whole process in place. He does it when they're installed.
Oh, okay.
So the benefit to doing the last coat installed, even though it's harder to get the details and you get some on the edges and you have to repaint and things, is that there are 2 treads that have a section taken out for those posts. And so those ones have small gaps because they have to slide in and then go up against it. So it depends on how you feel about how it looks once they're installed, but we'll want to probably do just a little bit of puttying around those anyway, just to kind of lock everything together. As far as this edge and this edge go, I've tried to do a really solid job of making each stair fit its location. So there's very minimal gaps. There's little things like this maybe, but there's very minimal gaps. And then when I install them, what I'll do is where that piece of wood that comes down like this for the riser is, I've drilled holes in most of them, and I'll drill holes in all of them. And what I'll do is the stair tread will go in place. I will weight it down. I will drive those screws in through that back piece to pull this gap tight and closed. And then I'll drive the screws from underneath. So I'll basically do this. It's exaggerated, but it'll be installed, screwed, then screwed down. So that leverages everything together and allows all the glues which will go in. So I'll put glue in those connections so that there's minimized squeaking, right?
But the riser should be finished and paint before you put in, and it shouldn't affect the gap between the riser and.
It shouldn't, no.
Yeah.
Now, the reality with doing stairs is that, let's say you were going to do 2 coats of paint on the risers. Let's say you're going to do primer and 2 coats of paint. It's best to do primer and 1 coat of paint, and then have the last coat of paint be after everything is installed.
Okay.
So that scuffs and marks and bumps can get covered by that last coat. It's the same with the finish on the stair treads.
Oh.
It's best to do 2 of the 3 coats, do stain and 2 finish coats, and then prep them, get them sanded and ready, so you don't have to sand, because sanding up against something can cause damage to the adjacent surface. And then what ends up happening is that last coat is easier because that last coat is unifying. It makes the whole assembly one thing. It does mean that you then you put finish on, and then you have to, when you go paint those risers the last time, you have to do more cutting in. You got to be more careful with that last coat, that last cut. But it's the best way to get a unified result that really pops, so that everything has its own space. So let me go get the vacuum, the vacuum and sander, so I can show you, because one of the keys with that, there's not a whole lot of that you're going to do. Most of it is literally going to be just you hand sanding with holding the vacuum, because you don't need to kick up a lot of dust once you get through the initial sanding, right? But let me go grab this so I can show it to you, because